Okay, so we got another little knife review here. Today we've got a review of the Buck Apex. This knife has been on my radar for a little while now, but I recently picked one up. We're going to talk about the knife, and then we're actually going to fix something that I think could be improved, and it's going to encourage me to carry this more. Now, this little guy, and it is little, I'm going to go ahead and put up the specs right now. You can pause the video if you want to take a look at those. It just saves me a little bit of breath because you can find those online. This little knife is something that I've been carried a little bit, but it's got a little problem that we're going to talk about. Its retention in the handle closed is not fantastic for a knife that you're going to climb with. I do climb professionally. I work as a rescue climber, and I put this on my harness for a couple days, and I looked down and I realized that it was swinging wide open, and that's not only something that could injure me, but that could injure somebody else that I'm working with. So we're going to go ahead and fix that today. One thing that I have been doing, and why there's some schmoo on here, is I've been taping it up and put just a little piece of electrical tape around there, real quick, just to slide off. This isn't the only knife I carry on me. I generally carry a Leatherman or another little pocket knife, but I like the look of this guy. It kind of reminds me of some of the climbing gear that we use. This is just a little wire gate carabiner, and this in fact also uses a little wire gate, and it's not bad. It could be better. Spring tension is pretty good, but if you'll notice, unlike a true climbing carabiner, there's no mushrooming of the head over there. Make all the jokes you want to. So you can pull this out with relative ease. Now, it's not something that's really going to happen while you're actually using the knife. I've never had this pop out, but it is kind of a little thing that I would like to see change. It doesn't take a whole lot to peen that down and fold it over so it doesn't come out. This knife also does have a pocket clip. It's kind of an anemic pocket clip. It doesn't really doesn't work particularly well. Let's see if I have something that I can test it on over here. There's not a lot of retention in this pocket clip, mostly because there's just not a lot of surface area. It reminds me a lot of this Leatherman pocket clip. It's not an inherently bad clip, but I have definitely seen this thing in my jeans poking out about that far. It's just small. And it's small for the size of the knife too. It's super narrow. I'm actually probably going to take this pocket clip off altogether because I never really am going to see myself carrying this in the pocket. The lock system on this is kind of interesting. I think you would call this a frame lock. It is the frame side which has the lock, but if you'll notice, it's kind of a cutout. It's not milled in and then closed. It's milled all the way around. So to close it, you just kind of push it. So they've left this area open. Again, very similar to Leatherman knife. Brought this out so we can compare them. This is going to be the Skeletal KBX. This is essentially half a Skeletal right here. And same thing. This one has a liner, but it's kept open, so you can, as opposed to trying to slide the liner closed, you just push it in, and it works pretty well. It's really easy to close, especially for people with wet hands or gloves. It works quite well. As we talk about this little carabiner thing, this is kind of marketed as a lightweight backpacker / climber knife, and it works pretty well. This wire gate is actually particularly sized for a decent size, like this little cipher, but it's almost the same size as a Black Diamond Neutrino. It'll fit those carabiners pretty much. It's got very little wiggle room on there. I actually keep this on just a chintzy little novelty carabiner, and then I put this on the harness, so it's easier to get on and off. I've got a redundancy there. The thing that I want to fix about this is the reason it doesn't have a lot of detent is not that this isn't under a lot of pressure. It's actually that the detent ball is not finding its way in the home very well. The detent ball here sits in a little concave, little milled out hole, and it looks like the hole is just slightly too far this way or this way, and so if you'll see, if it'll focus on me, it pulls in a tiny bit, but very, very, very subtle. Got our trusty little Torx Bits here. I think this one's a T6. T6 and T... Oh, no, it's also a T6. Moving pretty easily. Another thing that I kind of want to change about here is these little collars. I think they're kind of cool looking, and on the video, or on the photos that I saw of this online, it looked like it was mirror polished, and I liked the look of that, so I think I'm going to go ahead and mirror polish these just for fun, or give them like a satin polish. Now there are 3 different colors of this knife, or 2 different colors of this knife. It comes in 3 colors altogether. There's a really cool purple one, which my girlfriend likes. There is a black one that has carbon fiber on it, but I like the orange one because it matches a lot of the gear that we use. A lot of it's kind of that hazard orange color. Now, one thing that I absolutely recommend you get if you're going to be taking apart knives for any reason is one of these guys right here. This is a little magnetic dish, and it is fantastic for keeping all of your little screws in there. Nothing like having one of these shoot off into oblivion to just absolutely ruin your day, especially if it's a nice knife with a custom screw. So this thing, I've had one of these fall completely over on me and the screws still stay inside. And they are absolutely essential if you're going to be doing something like this. Or have a little closed container that if you close isn't going to spill all over the place if you drop it. Okay, so what I'm essentially going to do is I'm going to make that hole a little bit larger. Let's see, there we go, ginger. Alright, there's that little piece of aluminum. Oh, little Teflon washer there. We'll put this with his friends. You can see the model number right in there. Oop. Yeah, sometimes, especially if these are under spring tension, they are just going to fly right off on you, and you'll find them never. You'll never find them. Never ever. Except for when you don't need them. Once you've sold the knife a year from then, oh god, come on. Then you might find the knife. It's like the Lego piece. Like I saw it 1,000 times before I needed it, and now I can't find it. That's the exact same thing with knife screws. Alright, we can leave this part pretty much alone. You can see there's the detent ball there, and this is the hole. And if the hole it lines up perfectly with the detent ball, it's going to sit its full length in this. So the detent ball, it's a little captive ball that's set most of the way into a piece of steel. Say that this is the liner, and then the knife itself is going to have a little portion that's milled out that ball sits into. And if that is a little bit to the wrong side, it's only going to sit part way in. Now if we make it larger, it's going to sit all the way in, and it's going to catch on that side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little drill bit, and we're going to make it just slightly larger, put the knife back together, see if it's got more retention, and if not, we're going to do it again. You want to go up really gradually with something like this, because if you make it too big, you're going to have wobble in there. And even if it has good retention, the blade's going to kind of move in and out a little bit when you're playing with it, and it's just gonna feel weird. So just gotta go ahead and change the bit, and again, I'm gonna go in just super shallow, just enough to make the hole a little bit wider. Oh, come on. Aha! Tricks, we got them. Now, I'm not sure why this knife got discontinued. Seems like a pretty cool knife, but maybe they just weren't selling a bunch of them, or they needed to make room for other stuff in their factory. Buck has made a couple of different knives that are kind of centered around climbing. One of them called the Red Point, which is actually a climbing term, which I thought was kind of cool. Not particularly interested in it because, as you'll find out if you watch this channel, I hate rubber on knives. Not because it's not functional, but just because almost all rubber, almost all of the time, eventually degrades. And I don't want to spend good money on a knife only to have it fall apart like a boot after a while. And that looks like it's the exact size of the hole. We're gonna go one bigger. But yeah, the Red Point is a cool knife. It's just not a knife that I particularly am interested in. We actually have another guy that has it, and his rubber is actually delaminating from the knife. There she goes. Might do it. Let's go check her out. And now we'll see if she goes back together. And we didn't mess with her too much, so she probably will. I might speed up this part. Alright, now she's mostly back together. Oh yeah. world of difference. Let's see how much lower that sinks in now. Oh yeah. Yeah, that works. That's not shaking out of there anytime soon. I think it's actually looser than it was when I first took it apart. But that makes me feel a lot better. Even if I'm not going to be climbing with this much, if I'm going to have this hanging off of, I like to hang this off my belt loop if I'm doing some like ultralight backpacking, or if I'm hanging on my side. I don't want to have a knife that is at the risk of coming open while I'm using it. Because you've got so much real estate here where the knife is sticking out, anything that kind of brushes against it has a good chance of opening it. But this at least makes me feel a lot better. You can hear that really tactile mechanical sound when it sucks in. It sucks a lot deeper than it did. Alright, and yeah, I do think I'm going to go ahead and polish these guys, and I'll give you just a little quick look at that. Something to Buck's credit to mention that even for a Chinese made knife, this is covered in white Loctite. It's kind of hard to see around, you can see a little bit in there, but it's a lot of white Loctite or super glue or something to keep these screws in there. Those are not going to back out on you accidentally, which is, it's a nice touch. You know, especially with thumb studs and things. This one doesn't have any, but it's nice to see that. That's a little extra step. That's cool. Of course, we're going to follow the secret family tradition of doing it the wrong way. What I've got here is I've got a screw that's about the same head diameter, but a lot longer. And we're actually going to chuck the screw up in this drill here. And that's what I'm going to use to polish it. And after all that, I ended up actually chucking it in my little Dremel here. I had to turn down the head of this screw, which was fun. But this screw is actually what holds on those little cutoff wheels for the Dremel. And I had a bunch of them, so I turned one down. And I think that looks pretty cool. And well, let's put it back together for a second time. Still getting used to this whole YouTube thing and trying to see what I'm doing through a viewfinder. I want to make sure my hands are in the shot. I apologize for the way my hands look, but if you're into knives, your hands possibly look like this as well. How long is this screw? Okay, cool. Scooch that little guy out there. Oh, looky here. So what you guys didn't see is that earlier when I was done with the drill press, the camera fell right on this little a bowl of stuff and knocked it completely over, and luckily all my screws were there. But I definitely had that kind of clench your heart moment of wondering if all my stuff would still be there. Ooh, that looks cool. Ooh, I like that. Aha. I like that. Looks a little bit more premium to me. Yeah, it's just fun. I tend to customize my knives. There's almost always some little thing I find about them that I want to change, and I'm going to be changing something about this knife hopefully in the next video. It's got a decent problem that I'm going to try to talk about. Maybe Leatherman can do something about it, but it's got a real easy fix, and maybe I'll add that to the channel if it works. If it doesn't work, you'll never hear about it, and you'll just conveniently never see that knife again because I will have broken it. There she is, all dressed and pretty. Give her a couple drops of the Go Juice and we'll see how she works. A little bit of oil in there. You want to make sure that whenever you put these washers back in that you get any metal dust or any, especially abrasives, off of there. If they get between the pivot and the blade, they're just going to scratch it to high heaven. Alright. So, Buck Apex. That's the review, and maybe I'll roll in some footage of me carrying this guy on the belt loop. But I like it. It's cool. I'm gonna carry it on my harness now, make sure that doesn't fall off. And again, if it does, I'll send you a big old picture of it sticking out of the side of my leg. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you around.